What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got another video looking at another Phantom Rage card. This time we're looking at Feedback. This card looks so clean, and I actually think its effect is like low-key pretty strong, but we're going to talk about that today. So without further ado, I don't want to waste too much time. God, why can I not talk? I don't want to waste too much time being stupid. Well, let's go. Alright, here. So this is Feedback. It's a normal trap card. Great sign. That means you can Lilith it out. That means you can trap trick it out. Some good utility there. Its effect says banish any number of cards from your extra deck face down. And if you do, banish face up that many random face down cards from your opponent's extra deck until the end phase. Pretty plain and simple. I mean, okay. So what's going to be interesting is like seeing if this card ever sees play, exactly how does it see play, right? Because like obviously your first thought is like, okay, like your cards are banished permanently, your opponents are not. Your cards are banished permanently, your opponents are not. They will be getting them back into their extra deck at the end phase. So you need to be playing this in a strategy that doesn't really care about its extra deck anyway. Now I would say something like Subterrors, but also those decks like to play stuff like Pot of Extravagance, which this does conflict with, because if you've already resolved an Extravagance, that means you can at max banish 9 cards from your extra deck to randomly banish 9. And then obviously, depending on the kind of strategy you're playing against, them still having 6 cards left could be huge. I mean, what if it could be something like, just an example, Trap Tricks, okay? They can win a duel with just Sarah in their extra deck. And so, like, that's all they care about. As long as one Sarah survives, they still have a chance, right? And they can still at least play. They don't have as much utility with the rest of their extra deck, with, like, rank 4s and Lynx and Boral Sword to kill and stuff. But they can still play some beatdown. They can still play control with their traps and make it happen. So, obviously, there are matchups where this is worse against in a situation like that. So, like, it kind of conflicts a little bit there. Like, any deck that really would be using this also has a good chance that it kind of wants to use Extravagance as well. Or there's even the argument that, like, if you are playing Trap Tricks, you might want to play this. Like, Trap Tricks are one of the best decks at like just playing a ton of stuff that gets access to normal traps, mainly just being Trap Trick, and it also triggers your Sarah anyway. Well, listen, you may be banishing a ton of utility, but you could literally just save. Think about this: you keep 1 Sarah and maybe 1 Boral Sword for when you have enough bodies on board. You're able to just churn out enough bodies and play control. Boom, that gets you game. But you're still randomly hitting 13 cards out of your opponent's extra deck. If they're playing any strategy centered around any kind of comboing, that could just win the duel right there. Obviously, well, maybe not right there, but for the turn at least. It's essentially scything them. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is that this card kind of reminds me of Artifact Sanctum and the sole fact of, like, the result. You're locking your opponent out of their extra deck essentially for the whole turn, especially if you're just hitting 15 for 15, right? So what's interesting to me is like the trade-offs there, like they're slightly different, right? With the artifact package, you have to play the brick, you have to play the scythe. Some people play 2 scythe. That's terrible, especially if you're just going to draw them way more often. It's really, really bad. But also the power's a little higher. You summon the scythe and you still get to keep that big 2200 body scythe, and even some strategies can even potentially like loop that scythe multiple times and like, you know, just do it over and over again. This card's a one and done. You resolve it once and it's never going to resolve again, that duel, at least most likely, right? So there's a lot of like back and forth here, but I do think it's interesting. I do think if you wanted to try and play this, because maybe you've been playing a strategy that does play the artifacts, does play that kind of stuff, and you're just like, man, I'm tired of drawing Scythe. I played Scythe last tournament I went to, and I just do Scythe, Scythe, Scythe. This card essentially accomplishes the same purpose as long as your deck doesn't care about the extra deck, like at all. So maybe something like Dinosaurs, this is also interesting. Like, if you're just trying to kill your opponent, and you know your opponent's going to try and make you go first because you're playing like a hard go second Dinosaur build, you side this in, they make you go first, you hit them with this, they literally do nothing, and then you kill them because you're playing Dinosaurs, and that's what you do. Like, that is actually an interesting thing. I know Dinosaurs use their like extra deck somewhat, but it's not a crazy amount. And maybe you just hit 13 cards, and you save the 2 cards that you know that you think you'll probably want for the rest of the duel. It's fine. That works. That you can still get it done from there. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of utility here. Not a lot of utility. It's the same utility, but I think there's a lot of potential situations I could see this. I could see this as a side deck card. I could see this as just a meta call. When the entire meta is combo, this card just stops things. And there's also the potential of combining this with a card. I don't have anything off the top of my head here, but any card that just says like target XYZ banished cards, send them to the graveyard. / return them to the graveyard. I believe the way that ruling will work means those cards will not return to the extra deck ever. So like, that's pretty interesting. I don't know how many cards there are that just say like, do that. You know what I mean? And if they actually would justifiably pair with a card like this, like actually good, and maybe be searchable or something. I don't know. If they were though, that's just devastating. I mean, you literally just sent your opponent's like entire extra deck to the grave, and you know that you're playing a deck that just doesn't die by its extra deck. So I don't know. I think it's a cool card nonetheless. Like that's pretty much what this is. I don't think this is an obscene card, but I do think it's a card that does have a somewhat potential to be like a meta call depending on the meta. I don't know if it'll ever actually power creep like Scythe and Sanctum. But I think the potential is there. I think if those cards never existed, I think we would be looking at this card in a whole new light. I think this is just like one of those cards where like, oh, I play True Dracos. I don't play Extravagance in True Dracos because I wanted to play Duality, Desires, Card of Demise. Fine. Totally reasonable. And I'm not playing extra deck Dracos. Maybe this card becomes like a legitimate option in that deck. Just like an insanely powerful one card that's going to say your opponent just passed their first turn. They just passed their first turn straight up. It's not amazing longevity-wise, but sometimes your Draco is a slower strategy that just needs that one turn head start. Like give yourself one more turn to build up enough resources, and then it's going to feel like next to impossible for your opponent to get back into the game. So there's some things like that. I don't know. There are other examples too, I'm sure. Of course, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Throw down below what other like situations you could see yourself actually potentially considering this card for like, I don't know, competitive play in some way, or to combat the meta at least. So let me know your thoughts on that down below. Just a cool card. I wanted to talk about it. I don't think it's insane, but I did think it deserved a small conversation. Quick 5-7 minute video. But yeah. That's going to do it for me here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not yet. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. I am incredibly happy about it. Got a lot of things coming. And yeah, thank you so much. I love you. Peace.